Go down.
That's good.
Doesn't matter.
All right.
Go down. Okay. It looks like we are live, baby.
Happy New Year. I say that to you this year already.
Happy New Year. Thank you for joining us. This is Sunday service with the Morrisons, and we are David and Tammy Morrison. And so we are here to talk today a little bit about Martin Luther King Day celebration, life. And we want to share a little bit about diversion and inclusivity, since those are things that people are talking about and people need to understand. And we can share a little bit about some of our experiences with that. We would love if you have any comments. We love to see comments. We love to have conversation about that. If that's something that you have dealt with in your life, we were born Black in America, and we are over 50, so we have dealt with a lot of stuff. And the fact that people are looking for answers and looking for information and looking to make changes, and what else you said? The fact that we're moving in that direction.
Let's include unconscious bias in that topic also.
Yes, that's another one. Unconscious bias, because unconscious bias is just what it says. You have biases that you're unconscious of because you don't even realize you have them. And many times people think that just because they acknowledge another culture or another race, that, that means that, they don't exhibit racism, or that, they're not being biased. But the unconscious bias part of it is like, you can actually, be doing things, and, the way that you think about people affects the way that you treat people. And so those are some of the topics that we wanted to talk about just for a few minutes. We're going to be before you. So David, go ahead and share.
Well, myself, as you know, I'm retired Navy, crossed over from Army to Navy. I went in a time when there was no sensitivity training. And sometimes we go overboard, therefore making people afraid to address some of the issues and some of the matters. I started out in the Deep South, coming from the Northeast, and I went through things there. It was a little surprising, but from the time I grew up in the busing era. Some of the younger people don't really know that we were bused into neighborhoods where we wasn't really desired to go to school. And a lot of us was quite happy in the neighborhood where we were at. But society just decided to take a whole group of kids and put them into school systems and into neighborhood that they didn't really want to be in. The neighborhood didn't want them there. So it kind of prepared me for my travels in the military. Throughout my military travels, I went to over 20 something different countries overseas. Been a lot of places over the U.S. By now, I've been almost all over the U.S. And one of my first experiences was, and this is more direct bias, was we were doing we was on a Army work assignment. And I remember it was hot in Fort Jackson, South Carolina, near Tank Hill, which I don't hear too much about anymore.
They shut it down.
Yeah. And there was a civilian supervisor there who told my counterpart, you come inside and let those people work outside. But it went throughout my career. My best friend from Minnesota, and I believe we're still friends. We talked quite a few months ago. We were out of touch for about 30 years and got back in touch. My best friends back in the 80s, uh, who pride themselves being Norwegian from Minnesota at the time, who had never been around diversity, but he had bias, but at the same time, he had a heart of openness where he wanted to learn and he wanted to know more.
So that would be like an example of the unconscious bias.
Right.
Yeah.
And there was a time when I went into the Navy in early life. I was a guy who got signed in the military by his mother at 17. When I made it into the Navy a few years later, I was a little bit more chiseled as far as discipline. Like Navy is known for a lot of knowledge. Don't get me wrong. We know how to keep things white. We know how to scrub things. We know how to keep things clean, rust free, paint, and a lot of mechanicals and engineering. But at the same time, they wasn't chiseled like the army was back then. I came from a place where they filmed a movie called Full Metal Jacket, and the army a lot of times wasn't a lot different from the Marines. Besides the fact the Marines went and pissed everybody off, and then we had to go and clean up behind them. Simplify to all the Marines. Same time, um, we when evaluation time came in the Navy, what he noticed, because he followed everything I did. He was a little bit younger than me, so everything I did, I kept the spit shine boots when I got in the Navy, Boondocks back then, and he followed my lead and squared away his uniform. And when the evaluation time came, it was uh, uh, minds read, and this means a lot. The wording means a lot in evaluation. Uh, this is a person that's always prepared. Talk about me. Uh, 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 he's almost always prepared. He's almost, the words almost and potentials was used a lot. But when they did his evaluation, now this decides whether you get promoted or not. A lot of time over the person that's next to you. Over on his evaluation, it was always prepared, ready at all times, 4-0, because the lowest score you could get back then was a 2 something, but they said the top was 4-0. They said he's a 4-0, and I never got those ratings. And when he seen that first evaluation, us being really good friends, he wanted to address the matter. Uh, I had to stop him, of course, because as you know, as a society as whole, we learn focus grasshopper.
Mm-hmm.
We learn to address things a different kind of way. My wife is hearing things that's going on outside here, uh, which is we're getting ready to move in the country, so that's a whole nother thing. Country compared to this,
But you would think that the way that the differences in the evaluations, even though you were the leader, the
right?
differences in the evaluation, they had to do with your color and your race, your culture, and where you came from, and the people that were evaluated.
Right.
And this is something that we deal with on a regular basis.
Right.
That's why the work that Dr. Martin Luther King and so many others have done. We're talking about Dr. Martin Luther King because it's his birthday celebration tomorrow, but there were so many others. I mean, you can put Malcolm X in there as well, but these are things that the work that they did, Nelson Mandela, Bishop Desmond Tutu, there are so many others that we can name that did this work to help with this diversion and inclusivity, because the problem is that, when you think about unconscious bias, the problem is that the racism exists, in people's minds, and a lot of times they don't even realize it because that's the way that it has been. because it is embedded in the fabric of the world, not even the nation. We can say, for here in America, but it's embedded in the fabric of the world, because people look at you differently because of how you look, and they treat you differently because of how you look. And so this is something that, we felt compelled to talk about, especially at this time where we are celebrating and honoring Dr. Martin Luther King, who was one of the greatest leaders in the world ever. We have to put him up there. Of course, he was not perfect, but he was a leader, and he did his part to um, dispel some of these things. Because as David talked about, I also experienced busing. They bust us from the inner city all the way to the islands, because I lived in the South, and we had an hour and a half bus ride, an hour and a half. So you can imagine how many schools we passed to get to those schools where we were, put in classrooms and made sure that there were never more than 6 people of color in any classroom at that time. Never. At that time, 6. And then, even then, they grouped you and they judged you, according to, if you were smart, or, or if you were well-mannered or anything like that. And most of us were well-mannered because that is how we are raised, back in those days, especially. But yeah, we experience things, and so we know. And so when people, come to us about diversion and inclusivity, because now it's a thing, and it's something that, people are finally ready to make these changes, ready to um, allow people to be people, and ready to see people as they are. And I'm not talking about, and I have to say this because I hear people say this, and I have friends that are of other cultures, and they ask me questions, and I say, no, it's not that you don't see color, because that is a lie. You see color. Unless you're colorblind, you see color. And nobody is wanting you not to. Because the fact that we are all different colors, cultures, and races is like amazing. No, we're not doing that. It's amazing to me. Just the fact that, everybody is different. It's like so awesome, because what would the world be if we were all the same? Boring to me. And so I think it's a value that, we share in this conversation today, and we would love if you had any comments about that. And if you have experienced anything in that way, we definitely try to come back and look at the comments. I don't think we can do it on TikTok.
Yeah, we'll come back later and look at it. And to add to what Tammy said, some of us that are seasoned on this planet, to be past 50, 60, or what have you, and still in the workplace, as myself and as Tammy part time, um, we're blessed to be in a position to help out in that history, help out into that, to being inclusive. Um, we we as myself, uh, my great grandmother, who was born near the mid 1800s, who passed at about 110 when I was a baby, and both of my grandmothers being born in 1880s and 1890s. So that's a lot of history brought forward, because uh, my family and most of yours, they do have stories. They do tell stories, and that helped me. Sometime in this environment we're at now, people hear false narratives from whatever choose a chosen news channel or outlet they choose, and they don't know true history. And many times I have to shut it down, because, in a way, not to be rude, because we don't have to be rude, but I explain that until you study, until you have knowledge for yourself, you're just trying to confirm your bias or your ignorance.
Yes.
But we can have true discussions if you go out and educate yourself.
Yes.
For instance, one thing that shouldn't happen in a lot of the workplaces, and I feel comfortable to address this sometime, because I thank God I'm in a place where I don't need to work, but I do work because I feel like I have more to add and to give back. Um, for instance, it you turn on these news channels at work, and really that's not the way to put things out, because the news is not what it was when I was a kid. Walter Cronkite and
It's fake news.
and the better people in the news industry back then, far as knowledge wise, and not just making up stuff as it go.
Just for
Or
sensational sake.
right, or because this politician did this, let's find somebody on the other side to go after for the same thing. Forget about the American people, but let's just constantly stay against each other.
Mm-hmm.
I went through the military at the time. Oh yeah, maybe we didn't all vote the same, but we never put down the commander in chief. We just
Yes.
vote different next time.
Yes.
But now there's so much disrespect,
Yes.
and we could talk about bias and inclusiveness and and other things that's concerning in today's society. But we have to do it with a listening ear.
Yes.
As my father put it, God gave us two ears and one mouth. Be slow to speak, quick to listen. That helped me in the military and throughout life. That's just a token there.
Yeah.
Um,
So, what do you think the solutions would be to that? What do you think some solutions that we could do on a practical level, each one of us?
the solution is just like I said, is to be slow to speak, quick to listen, um, and sometimes ignorance can't be addressed and shouldn't be addressed, because that alone can escalate a situation. And not meaning we should ignore it, but we can always come back later. There's always a later.
Yes.
And there's different ways to come back about it.
Yes.
But I don't feel like any time we should hate or be discontent.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, in the 90s, when I was in the military, I was the Navy people know it, 9502 high risk training instructor in that environment, and we were all pretty considered high ranking guys sitting around. We were company commanders, etc. And one guy just popped up and said, "Ooh, look at that colored girl workout." And when he used the word "colored," everybody in the room realized I was the only one that at that given time resembled that biased remark, and which we don't really, but that said, and everybody turned around to me to see how I was going to address it, because back then, even in the 90s, military, you get pretty violent sometimes and get away with it, unlike today. Uh, but the guy who said it turned around and added flame by saying, "Well, I don't know what use people want to be called." And I addressed it so calmly.
People.
Uh, um, it goes a little deep, so I won't go there right now. Maybe another story. Uh, Everybody in the room got silence, and they looked, and it was a teachable moment. And we have to be that way in life. We can't jump the gun, because some of the most hateful people in their bias will never let it come out. Sometime when it comes out like that, it's an opportunity. It's more on an ignorance level than an actual hate, content, and to do someone harm. So
So you would call that unconscious bias?
unconscious bias,
Yes.
and at the same time, this can be addressed pretty easily. Um, and hopefully the person educated from it. But we see that day to day. Sometimes that they're blasting something that shouldn't be shouldn't be heard or addressed in the workplace. You know, because we can turn on radio stations, news channels, and get all kind of lies and what have you, and hate and discontent right there. And this should never happen in the workplace. But if it happened in our workplace, I know it happened in yours too.
Yes.
Uh, but what needs to happen in these matters also, Tammy, is management need to be more involved.
Yes.
They have a lot of good programs,
Yes.
but direct involvement is sort of like not really not really welcome. It's almost frowned upon sometimes if these things are addressed too direct, you know?
Do you think it's the fear?
It's a fear.
Because I thought about that. I said I think
It,
it part of it could be the fear,
yeah,
of looking one way or the other,
right,
or because people, in their unconscious bias, they have the fear that, maybe they're going to look like they're, too um too
one sided.
acquiescence. Yes.
Yeah,
They're going to look like maybe, they're looking at your side or whatever, or they're taking
right,
your side or whatever.
right.
And it's not anything to do with sides. It's all about unity. It's about us coming together. That was the key of Dr. King's message. You know, equal everything for all. When I look at somebody else that doesn't look like me, then I shouldn't think a certain way, and I shouldn't treat them differently than I would treat myself. That's the thing. It's like, why what is it going to take for us to get to that place of unity, to that place that Dr. King saw in his dream? What's it going to take? Because we're still not there, y'all. We're not there. you know and if you think we are, then you are delusional and you're fooling yourself. We're not there. So what is it going to take for us to get to this place where we are, looking at each other as human beings? Like David said, the guy said, I don't know what used people want to be called. Well, used people want to be called people, because that's what we are. We are all people. I work in the medical field. We all bleed red blood. I have never seen any other color blood on any other person. And I've seen bleeding from all kinds of people. Everybody bleeds, and we all bleed red. So what is the problem? So that means that, you know, consequentially, we are all the same, and that is where we have to get to, and then we won't need diversion and inclusivity training, because I can't even lie, that when I had to take that course, that pissed me off, because I didn't feel like I needed to take it, being a person of diversity, and I felt like the experiences that I've had in my life, I don't need that. Other people need it, maybe. And you know what? Maybe I wasn't right. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe we do all need it. But there has to be a place that we come to where unity persists, where I'm not looking at somebody that doesn't look like me and thinking one thing, and feeling like, they're different from me. We have to come together. There has to be that time, because there was a time in history where we were all together. You can see it on some of the stuff, back in like the 1500s and, the 1400s and all back in there. You can see it on some of the shows even now. I've noticed it, because they didn't look at that back then. People were people. And so that is the place that we want to get to. That's the place that we have to get to. We need to get there. And I would like to say that I would like to see it in my lifetime, but I'm not sure if it can be.
Anything is possible.
Okay, there we go. Anything is possible.
What I would
Anything
say.
is possible.
Also, disclaimer: there was never any violence Like I said, in the military, when that person did say that, and at the same time, just just to just to put a wider picture on the matter, me and Tammy both we are world travelers. We have the mindset of um, I've I just had a conversation with a lady during an event recently. She talked about uh, how she wanted to move out of America, not in a great way. And I'm one to tell you, being being in the service industry, far as military and thereafter, I never had a desire to move out, and I'll tell people that we have issues in America. However, this is still the greatest place in the world. And when I
Land of the free.
when I see people address it that way, I actually have to put my input in and talk about even spots in Europe where I couldn't find a cold a cold drink in a fridge whenever I wanted to. Just the small things we take for granted. You can't always find hot water in almost any hotel unless it's a high end name. Uh, uh, it's a lot of things we take for granted here. We take toilets for granted. But when you travel the world, when you think about moving these places and leaving this great place,
Do your research.
don't do like some people I've known that surrendered their citizenship to become citizens of another country. It's good to travel, good to know, but also know that America offers a lot of things that a lot of other countries don't offer, and never go out and uh, give up your citizenship. And if it's great to get out and travel, it's great to get to know another country, and I've seen Americans get in trouble overseas because we don't know enough about the rest of the world. A high percentage of us don't have a passport. That's not a good practice. Me and Tamara, we hit both borders, and believe it or not, if you haven't been to Canada, you haven't been to Mexico, our our um our neighbors there are these are amazing places. Uh, get away from whatever the news put out there about the violence. Be careful any place you go. Just like in the U.S., you can't go to any city.
Be safe.
You can't go to anybody's backyard. So be safe. Think safe. Be aware of your
Be
surroundings.
vigilant.
If you're males, don't travel in large groups. You attract a lot of attention to yourself. But know these places, and just that alone will make you come back, and you appreciate this land, you appreciate the people, you appreciate a lot of things we have to offer. And I know we can do better in showing love to one another, and being sensitive, and the word sensitive I'm not too crazy about, but being conscious about what's going on around us.
Yes.
uh, um,
And
and
how you treat people.
exactly.
Because I mean, if we all just subscribe to the golden rule, treat people like you want to be treated. I mean, would you want somebody, pulling you over and beating your ass and killing you? No, you don't want that. So don't do it to other people. Do you do you want to treat people and call people out of their name? You don't want nobody calling you out your name, then don't do it to nobody else. That would solve so many problems right there. Right there. So any final words?
Yeah, my wife go a little bit deeper on the topic, but at the same time, there's things going on in the world, and we could do a lot of things better. Anybody who hear this video,
Share it
this
out.
recording, yeah, share it and think about. what we can do to make it better
Yes.
instead of focus on it. It doesn't exist.
Yes.
America's much better, but we
Yes.
should even be in a better place for our kids and
Yes.
our children and our children children.
For the world, because
Right.
really the world is imploding, y'all. I don't know if y'all realize, but the world is imploding, and so we have to do our part to stop it.
And we
You
touch
know.
and agree on that.
Yes, absolutely. Um, so just be a better person this week. If nothing else, if nothing we said resonated with you, just think about this part. Be a better person. Let's live Dr. King's dream. Whatever you thought about him, he was an amazing man. He was an amazing man. Whatever you thought, he was an amazing man. So let's live his vision and his dream, because it's powerful. I mean, if you go back and just listen to some of his speeches, even if there's some clips on here on TikTok that you can go and look at, even some clips, just listen to some of the things and you will be amazed, because he talked about things that are happening now. Then that's amazing to me. So let's come together in unity, and let's stop all this divisiveness. And one of the things I want to say in closing is, you can opt out of all of this stuff. You do not have to be a part of everything that happens, and all of these things, and all the drama that they're bringing, and all the divisiveness that the news channels, and the different political parties, and all of these people. You can opt out of all of that stuff. Opt out of it. I opt out of it. Opt out of it. Just stop, because all it does is perpetuate more of the same. And so what we have to do now is focus on making these changes. Focus on speaking up and taking care of our people and ourselves, and looking at the world as if we want it to continue to be, not that it needs to implode because, this political party said that and that political party said that and all this kind of stupid stuff. Makes no sense. None. So let us join together in unifying, this, not only this country, y'all, this world, because like I said, this world has racism embedded in it. It's not just America. So you can think you're going to run from America and go someplace else. Racism is everywhere, because it's in here. It's in people's minds. It's in people's hearts. So we have to do our part to get rid of that, and let's just live. Let each other live. Let them live. Let them live. All right.
Mhm. Yeah, my wife is very intuitive. Yes, those of you who know her. At the same time, don't just make the world better for this week. You can start with today,
Yes.
this hour, this week, this year, this month. We can all make it better. We're not just talking to one race, one culture, one people, but every single one of us can make it better.
Yes.
Um, uh, Shalom Aleichem, Shabbat Shalom, uh, Salam Alaikum, and God be with you
And heal the world.
and heal the world.
Michael Jackson said it best, y'all. We're going to leave y'all with that. Heal the world. Make this a better place for you and for me and the entire human race.
Amen.
All right. Good night, y'all. Thank you for joining us for Sunday service with the Morrisons, and we'll be back again next Sunday. Make sure you're following us, join us, and if you can, share this out to whoever you can, because it needs to go worldwide.
Right.
All right. So thank you so much.
Tammy's amazing author, publisher. Look up her book, Tammy Morrison. She's on,
Spiritual teacher.
yeah, spiritual teacher. She's on Amazon. She's on a bunch of other sites. So look her up. She's an amazing person.
All right. Thank you so much. Y'all have a good evening. Bye now. Uh, uh, all right, let's go. Wait, one more.
Baby, I was.
Okay.
Was that